make it work for people with developmental disabilities. So that's what they did. And so now we have 7. This in September, we opened our first shared living home that we own, which is really exciting. So we're the Section 8 landlord, which is really exciting. We're going to see how this goes. We've helped other families to start shared living, help them put it together and such. And then we also got funding. We will be opening one more adult family home next year in the Bothell area. We already purchased that home. And then we're really excited. We have somebody that's donating a home that they're having built for us in Shoreline this next year. Also, that will be an adult family home. That is going to start. We're so exciting. It's huge. It's even got an elevator, so we'll be able to serve some folks that have higher physical needs that we haven't been able to serve before. So anyway, we're really excited about that. So
that's incredible, Kathy.
I
Congratulations.
know we are like we're going to be super busy this upcoming year. So, and we're really excited. And there's some other things percolating on the back burner that are coming as far as growth too. So it's really exciting. It's exciting time in the middle of a pandemic, right? Oh dear. Okay, I'm going to check the chat. Oh, I'll talk about shared living in a few minutes. I'm glad you are asking about that because that's really important. So, okay, so I'm going to get started. That's me. So just a little bit about kind of the reality of housing in Washington State. So, okay, I've got to fix this so I can see my notes while I talk. Okay, here we go. So in Washington, there are no guarantees for housing. So if you called up your case manager tomorrow and said, I'm ready for my son or daughter to move out, and this used to happen to me at the ARC, they would, say, oh, well, I'm going to send you this big long laundry list of adult family homes that are not necessarily DD, they're not necessarily serving people with developmental disabilities. And there you go. Go find something. They don't really even, they've even said that they don't really consider themselves to be in the quote unquote housing business. And so there's no guarantees for housing. And with that, there's not capacity. So, community homes serves adults with disabilities who live in the community and has DD specific homes. But, we have our seven going on 8 or going on 9 now homes. But the reality is in King County, there are only 12 total for all of King County, right? And we're a third of the state. So there's not capacity in adult family homes for people with ADD. There's not capacity. Supported living, we'll talk about waivers in a minute, but if you're fortunate to get a core waiver and you need housing, it's not going to happen overnight either, because those agencies aren't taking new people because they don't have to, they can't staff it. So, there's just a whole lot, there's not enough workforce. Housing is expensive, so it's hard to expand. So there's not capacity in lots of ways. And frankly, what it comes down to is it's up to the parents to pull things together. And that's hard, but it takes a lot of, it's a lot of work. And you have to, it takes time and energy to pull it together. So, so the younger you can start, the better. The earlier you can start, the better. Because again, the reality check, the squirrel's saying, "Wah!" So the statistics around Washington, there's about 25,000 adults with IDD living in our states. And of those, about 51% live with their parent or relative. So that's in the adults. If you add in kids, of course, then the majority live with the parents. But that's a lot of people that we're not planning for, you know, and our population is aging. So, you know, there's a lot of need out there. So that's a little about the reality. This is what I say is that the two parts to housing when you think about housing. And when we talk about models, I think this will be more apparent, but there's two parts to housing. There's the physical housing, the place you're going to live, right? The bricks and mortar. And then there's the support and care to live in the home. And each model, housing model, those two things is a little bit different for each of those. So paying attention to that as you listen to, you know, learn about the different models and how that works is really important. DDA kind of considers itself to be kind of the care and support side of things, you know, not the bricks and mortar part. Okay, so if you're talking about services for housing, there's a bunch of different pieces that go together and that happen around housing that you need to be thinking about. So, and each one of these little things could be a workshop in and of itself, and we're working on that. So this is the broad brushstroke quick, okay? So most of the time you're going to need some sort of Medicaid for your services to be connected to Medicaid to services. You're probably going to need to either be connected with DDA or Home and Community Services to get the care, the personal care you're probably going to need to be in a home. And then you need to think about, okay, so what are the benefits I'm going to need so that I can afford to live in the house? You know, if you or me goes and gets an apartment, you have to think about how am I going to afford to pay for the apartment, right? And with people with disabilities, they're often on SSI, and how are they going to have income? So, you know, the various benefits, you know, your SSI or your SSA. So, you know, our folks are usually low income. We often encourage people to try to get a Section 8 voucher. Now, that's a long and tedious thing in many counties. There's long waiting lists for a lottery. We're fortunate in King County, we have a DD set-aside program in King County, so it's a lot less. And that has allowed us to do more work, help families more quickly to get set up. You know, food benefits, you know, you have to eat, can also enhance your income for your home if you're creating a home, right? The food benefits are a piece to that. And, you know, I always say in employment, you don't think about employment as you know, a housing thing. Oh, that's a different thing. But what I'm really learning, especially since starting this, is just a little bit of income a month can really make a big difference for the quality of life for a person. You know, I see people that you know, just that, you know, maybe they're making $200 a month, and that really can make a difference between, you know, various kinds of, you know, being able to pay $50 more a month in rent, or being able to afford an activity, you know, going forward. So I always say, make that part of your employment part of your housing plan. Thinking ahead about what legal considerations, and not everybody needs guardianships, but you need to kind of think about whether you would, or whether you need power of attorney or just supported decision making. That's all part of the things you probably need to think about prior to setting up your housing situation. And you'll thinking about a special needs trust or the ABLE account. I always say those are tools that you can use as far as housing. ABLE accounts are the only kind of tool that you have that families could contribute toward housing. In other words, most of the time, Social Security says you're not supposed to have any support for your home. You know, you pay room and board, et cetera, et cetera. The only exception is through an ABLE account, that families could contribute to an ABLE account, and they could contribute toward housing. So that's something to think about when you're making a plan, you know. And I always tell families to think about, if you've got a youngster that's still in school and you're getting SSI, maybe you're getting paid to do personal care, they're between 18 and 21. Nothing's really changed since they were a kid. If you're able, that's a really great time to tuck away, use whatever you're drawing in, you know, their room and board or whatever, unless you truly need it, and that's totally great. Tuck it away and use it to prepare for housing or their adult life in some way. So it's an opportunity, as I would say. And then the various housing options, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about supported living, SOLA, adult family home, and shared living. Let me see. I'm looking in the note. Is there issues with ABLE account if you have a guardian that an attorney has to file the taxes? I have not heard that. I think it's if they're pulling it out. That's a good question, Darla.
So we had an attorney that was on our board, and when ABLE first came out, she said that if you have a guardian and there's more than $3,000 in the ABLE account, then you have to have attorney oversight with that account. Now that was when it very first came out, so I don't know if that's changed or not.
I may know. Is that attorney somebody I know?
Eva Lucchini.
Oh, okay, not. Okay, so that's interesting. I've heard a couple of attorneys say that, and then I've heard a couple of attorneys that did not. So I opened an ABLE account for my daughter this last year. The stimulus check came, right? And I had to keep her account under 2,000 and I needed to turn it around. And also her guardianship report was due this year. So I claimed the guardianship I claimed the ABLE account on the, declared it on her guardianship papers. And so I was curious what would happen. And they didn't do anything. I went through, I got my letters of guardianship. They didn't require any attorney. So I don't know.
Okay.
But like I said, I think it may be just one attorney dotting their I's and dotting their, whatever. I'm not a lawyer.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah. Okay. So, when I talk about the services that you need for it, I always like to say this piece that government services do not necessarily give you a quality of life. They're a tool that you can use to get the life you want. So, I mean, I kind of joke, I say, I've never met anybody that called up the government and said, yes, I would like you to give me a good life. Then they'll just kind of laugh at you, right? And we want good service, quality services, but the reality is that they're about health and safety. And if you want a good life, you have to kind of create that for yourself. And you can use those services as a tool to get the life you want. Because sometimes we focus on, as soon as the services get better, then it'll be all okay, right? And frankly, that's probably not going to happen. So, use them to their advantage to get the life you want. And now I've got to find my little, let's see, can I do this? I moved my things around. Now I can't find my button to push to make things move forward. Okay, there we go. So Medicaid is kind of the key to most of the services that you're going to need for housing. I call that kind of the foundation. And then, on top of, there's Medicaid, and that gets you health. Most people think of Medicaid as healthcare. Then there's Community First Choice that, is for anybody that needs personal care services that has a disability, whether they have a developmental disability or a physical disability, but it's part of Medicaid. It's kind of that second layer up of support that we have. And then it's kind of like there's two rooms you can go in to get more services. There's the DDA side that, we have our home and community-based waivers on the developmental disability side. And on the home and community services side, they have something called the COPES waiver. And each of those things each waiver has their own list of services that they provide that are different. And then, and on the same with the COPES waiver has its own list of services. So everybody, that's, that is Medicaid is that foundational broad healthcare, you get your prescriptions, et cetera, et cetera. Home and community services is a little bit narrower, people that need support. And then those two rooms, DDA has each waiver has those very specific services that are available. And then on the home and community services. And with that, that's the key to get to having services. So the 5 waivers we have in DDA is IFS, the Individual and Family Services. And so pretty much all of the people that are on IFS live at home. Most of them are under the age of 21. With some exceptions, there are youngsters that get on some of the other waivers. Then there's the Basic Plus waiver. So the 3 housing options within Basic Plus at this point in time is living at home, an adult family home, or shared living, which we'll talk about those 2 things pretty soon. There's the Children's Intensive in-Home Behavior Support waiver. I think that's all of it. And that's for folks, children under 18 living at home. Then there you go, the core waiver. Look at that. They have a lot of options. There are, you could live at home and be on the core waiver. You could be in supported living. You could be in a SOLA. You could be in a companion home. You could be in a group training home, and you could be in shared living and be on a core waiver. So, we kind of talk about the core waiver is the kind of the golden ticket. But unfortunately, it's not very available for folks. There's also something called community protection for folks that have safety issues, and oftentimes they've been involved with the courts. So most of our folks are not going to fall into that, and it has its own kind of housing system that's similar to supported living, but there's a lot of restrictions there. The next piece I always tell families is if you're thinking about housing, it's really important to really step back and think about what it is you want before you decide on a model. Stepping back and thinking about, what do I want for my son or daughter? Asking them what they want for their life. What do they want it to look like? What are the things that you don't want? Sometimes that helps filter out a whole bunch of things. If you don't, have a list of things that you don't want. And thinking about the things that you're really worried about. Sometimes those things that you're worried and scared about can be real barriers in your planning. So being able to identify what those things you're worried about is really helpful, because if you can name it, then you can make a plan to work on it and how you're going to make sure that whatever it is you don't want happening happens. So having that kind of North Star, this is where we're going, this is what we want for our housing, I think is really important as you go through this process, and having that conversation with your son or daughter, what do you want that to look like for you? And I've never heard anybody say, when you talk to a young person, say, I want to grow up and live in a group home. Never heard that. Now, if you have, I won't, let me know. But I think asking about what that might look like, that doesn't mean that they might not need that level of care and support, but they need to be able to have a part in what their life looks like. So let's talk, that's the overview of the services. Let's talk about housing models. So let's see. I'm going to pull this up here and move it back so I can see better. There we go. So a little bit about supported living. And again, this is one of the model that needs a core waiver. So, the reality is people in supported living, the people that are getting the core waiver that could get into supported living at this point in time are pretty much individuals who are in crisis, those people that are coming out of hospitals or institutions, or they have a caregiver that passes away or is in, or some other really huge crisis. So it's not a model that's probably going to happen for our lovely young adults coming out that are pretty capable and want to live on their own. That's probably not the reality that would be available for them, although you never know, because every once in a while, the legislature will send some funds out to help do that. But I think as time goes by, we'll see that even less and less. So a little bit about supported living. Supported living usually has between 1 and 4 residents. Again, they must have the core waiver. You work with a supported living vendor to find, to make what they would say a placement, which includes the home, finding a place to live and finding the roommates. And then the vendor or the provider provides staff to staff the home. So this is not a model where people live in with the person, with the caregiver. This is a model where, you have, depending on the needs of the person, staff coming in to care for them. So if a person needs 24/7, that means they're probably going to have 3 shifts of staff every day. Part of the other challenge right now around capacity is there's a caregiver shortage, and it's difficult because they're not paid highly, getting caregivers in there. So there can be huge turnover. I think they were saying in supported living, the turnover is like 50% a year turnover. You also don't really get much option about who you live with, where you live, or who your caregiver is. Families do not have that ability to impact that, and that's something you need to think about. They work in shifts, and in this model, all the person's care needs and habilitation, that means things to teach them to learn to do things, are to be provided by the vendors. The only thing that's not covered in there usually is employment is usually a separate, but pretty much all their daily needs are to be met by the provider. Some less common models that are available. We also have a model called SOLA. And SOLA homes are, let's say, state-operated living alternative. Is that right, Darla?
Yes, it is, Kathy. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So SOLAs are it's pretty much the same model as supported living. The difference really is that the staffing comes from state employees, so they're paid better and have better benefits. Again, you have to have a core waiver, and they're primarily are set up for people who are coming out of the RHCs, the residential habilitation centers, the institutions. So that's, it's not a model that's greatly available. Also, there's group training homes. Those were group homes that were started in the, 70s and 80s by parents. They can have between 5 and 12 individuals in the community. They're either licensed as an adult, an assisted living facility or an adult family home. They require a core waiver. The state is not, that's not a model you can go out and start anymore. It's kind of a model that's been grandfathered into our system. That was a model they used back when. They're not making them go away, but they're not starting any new ones. Usually they're owned by a nonprofit, again, that was started by families. But occasionally, if a person has a core waiver, an opening may occur in one of those group training homes. So that is a possibility. But if you just say, I want to go into a group training home, it's probably highly unlikely that is going to occur in that manner. And this is the one that Darla knows the most about. Companion home for an individual with a disability. So one individual with a disability lives in the caregiver's home, or they create their own home together. They may go rent a home, and it can only be one person, because if they care for more than one person, then they consider it to be an adult family home, and then there's all sorts of licensing. But it's also a core waiver, and the way that it is financed, it's different than supported living in that the caregiver receives a stipend to live with the person, and they also are responsible for all the care and support for the person. They also receive some respite, and the stipends substantial compared to what the direct support people are paid in supported living. So there's often some incentive for the caregiver to stay around and care, and it can be a really positive relationship. This also was a model designed by parents in your area. So Darla knows way more about this model, but it's really great if you have a core waiver, a good option for somebody that maybe doesn't want to have a bunch of roommates and needs a lot of stability in their care. And if families want to have more control over what's happening, where they don't have that in supported living. So the two models that Community Home directly works with is adult family homes, and an adult family home may be owned and operated by the same person and provides housing, food, and care to vulnerable adults. Usually there's between 5 and 6 residents. There's some new legislation that some homes that have sprinkler systems and have enough square footage, I think can go up to 8. And we don't think that that's going to happen very often, that there would be that many people. The homeowner, the person, can be the caregiver. In our case, with Community Homes owns the home, and then the caregivers, well, we have 2 models. Some where the caregiver holds the license, and then we also have one where we have one of our folks has a resident. We hold the license, and then we hire somebody to live in the home. So it can be either way. Highly regulated. The joke, when we started in the 90s, they said the regulations, were just this very tiny little few pages of regulations for adult family homes. Now there's they have 4 or 5 huge notebooks about the different regulations. And as only you can imagine, now that we have the pandemic, we have a whole new notebook just about pandemic and how the regulations there. So it's what started as a great way not to have a lot of regulations has changed. But the good thing about adult family homes is that they're really ready-made. You know, the housing's there, the care is there, it's all kind of wraparound. And, you know, there's not, once the person's in the home, you know, the family can participate as little or as much as they like. Here's a little bit about what the cost looks like for an adult family home. So rent and food are paid for by the resident from their benefits. And that's usually, I think this year it's like $711. I think it might actually be $713 a month that each resident pays, and that's decided by DSHS. Okay. And then the personal, you know, the personal care hours an individual receives, you know, so you know, my daughter gets about 55 hours a month of personal care. What happens is when they go, if she were to go in an adult family home, they take that very same assessment, the care assessment, and they convert the hours into a daily rate that is paid to the adult family home. So they pay their room and board, and then the state through Medicaid pays this daily rate to the adult family homes. So finding an appropriate adult family home, that's always a little challenging. You know, you can request a list of homes in your area. There are very few, we said this earlier, AFH is specializing in serving adults with IDD. There is, if you go to DSH site, there is there's a website and a adult family home locator, and you can go there and you can download, you can put in different criteria. You know, the first one would be, do they take Medicaid? And then you can look and see, you know, your area, and then you can say whether they have the DD specialty training. And those three things will probably filter out, you know, get you filter it down, because there's lots of adult family homes, huge amount. They'll send you thousands if you just kind of all the adult family homes in my area, but you need to filter it down. But once you get it filtered down to, you know, the ones that have been through the DD specialty training, and it's nice because you can download it into an Excel spreadsheet. Then you have to look and see what the other specialties they have, because most of them are going to say, the majority say, well, I have a DD specialty and I have specialty in dementia and I have a specialty in, you know, maybe brain injuries and, you know, a bunch of other things. That's probably a good clue, especially the dementia one, that they don't just take people with IDD. That's like, we've just taken all these nice trainings to bring in as many clients as we possibly can. So you'll really need to look closer. And so when you narrow it down again, it's going to be pretty small if you're only looking for IDD. And that's not to say that an adult family home that serves more than IDD might not be appropriate in some cases. You know, if you've got somebody that, you know, a person with IDD that's, you know, in their late 50s and beginning to have issues with their health and so forth, being with other seniors that are having very similar issues might be very appropriate. So, you know, it just really depends on the situation. And you'll need to, you know, that first question out of your mouth is going to be, do they take Medicaid? You know, and asking them, do you have a vacancy for a young adult with IDD? You know, ask about how old are the other clients? What's kind of the lifestyle? It's a very difference in philosophy about, does the caregiver do for everything for the person, or is it encouraged for the person to participate and be a part of the household and contribute to the household? That's really different philosophy. You know, older ladies or men or whatever may want to just put their feet up and watch TV and have somebody serve them dinner, right? But for a young adult, that may not be an appropriate placement. So, and then if you visit an AFH, you know, do the residents look happy? Is it clean and organized? is the neighborhood safe? You know, look through the room. My colleague says she always asks if she can see in the refrigerator to see what kind of food they're serving. That might be a little bold, but it would tell you a lot. So, so that's adult family homes. And again, you know, it's the majority are going to be for seniors. There's a few for our folks, and we need more. You should also know that it is possible to start your own adult family home. Families can do that, and we've seen several folks that have worked on that because it has some long-term stability, you know. So that's a possibility for the right people. Let's see. Let's talk about shared living. So shared living is a term that it's kind of a made-up label, for so to speak, that DDA doesn't really. If you tell your case manager, we're going to do shared living, they might look at you cross-eyed and say, well, we don't recognize that. We don't know what that is. But you know, shared living is basically people living together, and people with IDD have the right to live together with whoever they want, to move out, live where they want. So it's usually a home rented by residents together. And the model that we often use is a caregiver is hired to provide personal care services to the individuals. Usually 2 to 4 residents. It can be a house, it can be a condo, it can be an apartment, whatever they choose. And then they hire a living caregiver. So no, you know, if you have 2 to 4 people living together and they all receive personal care, you know, each can contribute their hours to the caregiver. So if a bunch of guys or girls or mix, you know, have a lower number together, that may be enough to give enough support to the individuals in the home. There's limited regulations, and it can be created by, you know, the resident and the family together. So it's a way, and it can be not just for people that have are capable of being fairly independent. It works for that model, but it can also work for folks that have very high needs. The new home that we are, our first shared living home that we're opening will have 3 ladies that have pretty significant needs. They're aging and need a lot more support than the adult family homes that we've had in the past. And together, you know, they're working on that. We usually, the folks use Section 8 to pay for the housing. So Section 8 allows you to pay, you pay 30%, the individual pays 30% of their income, and then the federal government pays the rest of that. So, and it allows for some accommodations. So one of the accommodations is that is to have a caregiver that lives in, and they get their portion of the rent is paid for. So you have the opportunity to offer somebody a room and free place to live, as well as and being able to caregive. So that's a great advantage for some folks. Also, the family, and I'll see if I say this right, the family could own the home and could be the Section 8 landlord. So, so they would have control of that, which would give a lot of stability. But if they do that, if they're the Section 8 landlord, they cannot be the same person that is the caregiver. Okay, so you can't do both. You can be the landlord, but you can't be the caregiver. you could flip that and you could be the caregiver, but not the landlord. So but family cannot be the live-in caregiver. That's not allowed. So there's a lot of space for creativity. Each household is really different from each other. None of the houses we've helped set up look like the other. People bring different capacities to the table. You know, sometimes families, you know, to be able to keep a caregiver longer, they offer, you know, they take their sons or daughter home for the weekend so that the caregiver gets a break, or you know, they offer other kinds of support to the home. And again, everybody brings their gifts to the table, and it can look really different in various situations. Also, there's, you know, the opportunity in some cases, Section 8, there's also you know, if somebody gets into one of the low income housing units, those often have you can also have that same accommodation for a living care provider. So we know a young lady that so she got a unit in a low income apartment building, really lovely place that's right above the bus stop, bus terminal. It's kind of a cool place. And so she got the accommodation to have a free living caregiver. So she, you know, she doesn't have a huge amount of care needs, and so she doesn't have a lot of hours, but she offers, you know, free room and board to this young couple who are there at night, and provide a little bit of support to her during the week. So, you know, you can go for a lot of different ways with it. So shared living, when you use Section 8, again, rent is 30% of the resident's income. You know, you need to factor in food. We usually say between $2 and $2.50 budgeting for food. And you can, if they get food benefits, then that reduces that cost quite a bit. The personal care is paid by Medicaid, so those hours. And then some families choose, you know, if they need, the individual needs more extra supervision beyond what personal care provides for other kinds of things, some families choose to pay the caregiver to do more than that. So, and they can do that. And the process is, you know, fairly simple. Well, it's not simple. It's pretty, there's a lot of work. So selecting compatible roommates is really important, and it's really important who you choose to live with. And family, we always say the compatibility is not just with the roommates that needs to be good. It needs to be with the families. You need to be sure that the families are compatible and have same values and are have the same kind of priorities when they're working together, because you're going to work closely with them. You want it to go well. And then, you know, the next challenge is really finding affordable housing, and then hiring a caregiver, you know, figuring out who could be a good caregiver, and negotiating, you know, interviewing and negotiating roles and responsibilities. And we usually say that it's really important to have formal agreements with the caregiver about, you know, creating a job description, and how much agreements about, you know, how much extra you're going to pay for various things and such. So, and those three things, you know, the challenge is that those three things kind of happen all at the same time. So you can do a lot of planning, but it's like, when the time comes, let's say you suddenly get a Section 8 voucher, then they're going to be finding roommates and looking for a place and hiring a caregiver all in a very short amount of time. So thinking about and preparing ahead is really important. Okay, whew, that was a lot. I'm gonna close this PowerPoint, and then I'm gonna let you guys, I expect you guys have got a lot of questions. So stop share. There you go. It's like drinking through a fire hose.
It was very good, Kathy.
Oh man. So what are your questions or thoughts or concerns, or what do you want to know?